Hola, everybody. This is A Marvelous, and I'm back. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for stopping by. We're just going to get right into it today. This is the first review, first season, first episode, the pilot of The Good Wife. I may get a little controversial today, but you'll have to bear with me. I think it's very necessary. Um, the main topic, obviously, is going to be the review of The Good Wife, season one, episode one. And the theme is going to be are women, or should I say, pardon me, is cheating enough for a marriage to be dissolved or a relationship to be broken up? And I asked that question because maybe we're looking at marriage from an emotional standpoint instead of what it is political, legal, and commercial tool to unite two people that love each other. So maybe we should look at politicians and politics as a guide to maybe save our relationships and our marriage. And I think The Good Wife first episode is a classic example of why I say that. Now, for those of you that don't know, The Good Wife is a show based on a very strong, independent, yet family oriented woman named Alicia Florrick. Julia Magulis, hope I pronounced it right, is the real life character. And in the first episode, her husband is the state's attorney for Chicago, Illinois. And he just got exposed for cheating on his wife with prostitute. And he's also brought up on corruption charges for misappropriating the people's funds in the city of Chicago. So the scene opens up where, Alicia Florrick, the main character, the wife, is all distraught and she's looking all angry and everything. And it's a press conference, and the state's attorney is making a speech, pretty much apologizing for cheating on his wife and claiming his innocence and the crime that he's being brought up on charges for. Now, this is important because for those of you that are aware and in tune to current events and not so current events, politicians in history and recently have always cheated. Men cheat. It's not a secret. But it's something about when politicians do it, the focal point is not just on the politician, but their wife and their response. And I noticed that a lot of the politicians' wives, they stay. They don't leave. And I find this interesting that this is the central focal point in the show The Good Wife. So I pose the question, is cheating enough to end a marriage or end a relationship? Now in the show, being that her husband is now about to go to prison, and he does go to jail in the first episode, the central character, Alicia Florrick, is now faced with a lot of tough choices. And primarily is how she's going to support her family. Now that her husband's in jail and locked up, she has to figure out a way to support her family. But the good thing is, she was the top of her class in law school, graduated, and she has legal experience, and she was a good defense attorney. But the thing is, she's been out of the market for about 15 years. So she hasn't practiced law. She's been a housewife, devoted housewife, as they say, for 15 years. And now she's in a situation where she has to be the breadwinner and she has to take care of everything. So my question is this. Given similar circumstances, and even if you're not a high-powered attorney or someone with a highly professional career, are there more important concerns when you have a family and a long-term marriage or even a relationship to consider when keeping your family together? Is cheating a high enough reason to end a marriage? And in the show, ironically, she's faced with, like I said, many tougher or seemingly tougher decisions than cheating. She has to now become the sole provider for her family, materially, financially, and take care of them. That's priority A. So that and her children become the main focus. Also, she has to figure out how to get reassimilated in a career that she hasn't practiced in 15 years. So all of these things, not to mention the public scrutiny of being the wife of the state's attorney, who cheated, got caught, and publicly exposed with prostitutes and is in jail. So the fact that her husband's in jail is also a lot of stress on her plate. So with all of these important factors, it makes me wonder, in everyday life, not television, are there more important things to keep a marriage together? And is cheating big enough reason to break a marriage apart? Especially now, since relationships and marriage are pretty much on rocky territory. They're not as solid as they used to be. I think looking at politicians that do cheat in their wives and what happens to them is a good case study to analyze what should be done in our lives when such a thing happens. I know ladies are saying, "Oh, it's making excuses and cheating isn't good," but is it as bad compared to not having someone that you love for so long there? Because the question of a man cheating isn't if he loves you. The question is why he cheated. And 10 to 1, the cheating has nothing to do with him not loving you or the children. So if that's the case, and there are other factors that you have to face if there is a separation, maybe cheating isn't that bad. And if you look at governors like Elliot Spitzer, Anthony Weiner, um, Kirk, the ex-mayor of Detroit, they all had wives that stuck by them. And in the show, there's a scene with Alicia and Diane. And Diane is the one that partners, she's one of the partners that owns the law firm that is the central focal point of The Good Wife. And in the scene, Diane meets Alicia. And Diane is older, older lady, experienced, single, career driven, no children. So she is the typical prototype of the successful, independent woman that has not been sidetracked by family. Alicia is the example of the career woman that has family, but yet put her career on the back burner for her husband. So that dynamic is interesting. But the notable part is when Diane starts asking her about, her brief legal career that she had, and she starts addressing her troubles getting reacclimated in the law profession. She says you have a lot of baggage that you bring because you've been out for so long, and you have a high profile situation being that your husband had an affair and he's in jail. And right when she's talking to her, the camera pans to a picture with Diane, the head attorney, and Hillary Clinton. And Diane says, well, it's not like it hasn't been done before, or something to that nature, and points to a picture of her and Hillary Clinton. Now, I thought that's interesting. If you look at my prior video about women and how their image will be used for different messages, it seems that Hillary Clinton is the prototype, America's symbolism for a faithful woman given extreme pressures. Career minded, highly driven, successful, family, and yet she's stuck by her man who allegedly cheated. And not only that, she is now running for president. So, in a good over a decade, maybe 15 years since her husband cheated, Hillary Clinton has stayed, and now she is possibly going to win the highest office in the land. So ultimately, she has won. So again, the question is, if Hillary Clinton, which is the symbol for faithful women of men that cheat, high-powered men that cheat at that, maybe women overall should use that as a model and start to evaluate the overall factors given in keeping versus destroying or ending a relationship. So I thought that was interesting. So that let me know that this show is, being that this is the pilot episode, is actually setting the image and promoting the challenge of keeping a marriage versus not, in regards to cheating. So Hillary Clinton was used in reference. And this show was back in 2009 is when this first episode aired. And that was at the beginning of the Barack Obama administration. And the season finale was this past Sunday. And it's now 2016. So in 7 years, we have a show in which the main theme was this woman battling with infidelity from her partner and also resurrecting her career as an independent woman and maintaining her family and grappling over this 7 year period, 8 year period, 7, 8 year period of whether or not she should stay or get a divorce. And I thought it was key that nowhere in this first episode did she mention divorce. Divorce wasn't even a priority. Yes, she was angry. Yes, she was upset. But not one time was divorce even mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, in the first episode. So maybe this is an example of what people outside of TV, us, should look at. If it's good for the wives of politicians to stay together and keep their relationship going, why isn't it good in the real world, outside of politics, in the public sector, to do the same? Maybe the women that aren't politicians' wives are missing something. If Hillary Clinton can almost literally gain the world, and other politicians that have stayed have actually still benefited because their family is together, their men are still high powered and they still reap the benefits. And a lot of these wives of politicians are also successful in their own right. Maybe we should stop drinking the lemonade from Beyonce and start looking at the power that the wives of politicians seem to hold, even after the storm of their husbands cheating. Another example is Anthony Weiner. If you look at his wife was also into politics and still is. In fact, she's Hillary Clinton's one of her main advisors. So I find that interesting, right? Birds of a feather flock together. Birds of loyal feathers flock together. So if Anthony Weiner, and for those of you that don't know who he is, feel free to Google him. If she is the advisor to Hillary Clinton and she's still with her husband and still on the campaign trail with Hillary Clinton, maybe these women know something that most of the women outside of politics don't. Maybe they look at the total value of the relationship and what is to be gained by keeping it together that the average woman outside of politics doesn't see because they're blinded by emotions. So maybe we should reevaluate cheating and put it in the context of what's important. Not condoning it, not justifying it. I'm just offering a view from a show that maybe it should be looked at. Maybe we should start looking at relationships politically. Maybe we should start looking at relationships from a commercial standpoint, meaning that we should take the sum total of its parts and put the actions such as cheating in perspective in comparison to other priorities. And it's also key to note that this show, The Good Wife, was created and written by a married couple. Very few shows you have written by a married couple. So I think it's important to look at the themes and messages that this show is giving and honestly take a look at it. Because if this is coming from the viewpoint of a married couple and it's addressing something that's happening, cheating, which happens regularly across millions of Americans in their lives, and this is happening with people that have a lot to lose because they're in the public eye, maybe this is something that should be looked at outside of the public eye. Maybe this is something that we should look at on a private level. How important is cheating in comparison to children not having a father? How important is cheating in comparison to having 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years together with someone who knows you better than almost anyone? Maybe the cheating aspect has been dealt with by the women behind closed doors to the point to where they could still remain happy and fulfilled, and the man has somewhat, I don't want to say repented, but the man has somewhat shown some kind of remorse for his actions. And maybe they've dealt with the reasons as to why they cheat. Maybe that's a sign of a deeper issue. So in this first episode, I think it's important to note that she got back on track. She managed to win her first court case in the first episode, and she managed to resurrect her legal career. She managed to pretty much visit her husband regularly, keep it together, and she actually went from being in a distressed situation and to completely confused and chaotic to actually coming up with solutions. And as you'll see in the show, summon a strength that I don't even think she realized she had. I think that's another clue that we need to look at. Maybe something like cheating is just a sign or something that can actually forge a woman to rise to strengths that she didn't know she had once she dealt with the reasons as to why she cheated, or if she puts it in perspective as to the other things that's more important in breaking the family up, like making sure the children deal with it properly and making sure that the family unit is intact. So I think this first episode was good in looking at that. I think we should look at that as well. Take it outside the realm of cinema and fiction and apply it to our everyday lives. What is it that these politicians' wives know? Some would say, oh, they have money, they have, yes, but it's also a pressure of knowing it in front of millions of people. Your husband has disgraced you in a sense, and yet and still they kept it together. And now you don't even hear about people like Elliot Spitzer. You don't even hear about, well, Anthony Weiner has a documentary, but their lives are still intact and they're still fully functioning. And Hillary Clinton is leading right now in the presidency. So maybe this is something that we should look at. And this first episode of The Good Wife is a good testimony to asking the question, is cheating a big enough reason to end a marriage or relationship? And maybe it's not. And if it's not, then if we put it in context, maybe we can save more marriages and relationships by not reacting emotionally, but actually addressing relationships and marriage from a political standpoint, because that's what it is. No one gets married. Well, very few people get married without going to a legal means with a piece of paper. And those legal means are regulated and lobbied by politicians. So whether we agree it or not, your love at the end of the day is signed, sealed, delivered, and glued through political means. So maybe looking at politicians, looking at their wives, and looking at the cheating aspect that politicians have done and the wives that stick by them, and looking at The Good Wife as a good test study, especially this first episode, maybe that's a hidden gem to keeping relationships together and maybe not reacting as emotional, and maybe presenting some new solutions to a problem that seemed to be plaguing everyone but women mostly. And with that, I hope you like this brief review. Please welcome your comments, questions, commentary is always welcome. And stay forward and stay tuned for Season 1, Episode 2 review. Thank you for stopping by.